inflation renewable. Oh, let's see. How do I get rid of this? Janaki, I don't know what to hit to get rid of this thing in the middle of here. And maybe there she comes running. I'm so glad.
I made sure to remember to do it because otherwise I was going to forget.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay. So the Inflation Reduction Act is new, and Jamie's acknowledging that he doesn't have all the answers. And if you guys have some more answers, he wants your help. But here he is, he's going to tiptoe in and tell you how to save money, how to reduce your carbon footprint. So people at home, keep your questions in the chat. And at the very end, we will pitch them to Jamie. And people here, please, we've got microphones that you have to use for your questions only at the very end. So Jamie.
Am I here? Chair Judy, fellow activists, the looky-loos on Zoom and in the halls. I'm Jamie Wine, and I've got a lot of love to give. Sometimes maybe too much love to give. I brought my partner tonight, and she said, "Hey, you're going to Sierra Club? I love it at Sierra Club. I want to come." And we've been together for 13 years. It's quite the date when you can get out of the house, go to the Sierra Club. Uh-oh. I was paying attention during the tutorial, I promise. I clicked the mouse, but
So
what if I,
also just use
that one's not working. Or maybe it's just,
now it's
maybe it's because you touched it, it works.
so, but if this doesn't use you back and forth there, it's because
Oh, it's like magic. Okay. I got a lot of love to give, and I love nature. I feel like y'all probably also love nature. I've had lots of personal experiences, spiritual experiences with like cormorants, with marine mammals, with my daughter. And I think that a lot of times in the climate fight, sometimes we lose sight of that, where we're fighting, but you've got to kind of remember the stuff that you're in love with so that you keep fighting. So I want to tell you a little bit about the stuff that I love. That new baby over there is my niece. She was born in June. I went and held her in Boston like 2 weeks ago. I really didn't want to leave. I forgot how small they were when they come out. They're so tiny. And then the best beagle ever. And then my daughter and our other dog, who I think is the best dog ever, but I think I'm probably the only one. And that little flock of birds. So that's why I fight this fight, is because I got a lot of love to give, and I love the environment, and I love nature. I love being outdoors. And I think it's hard sometimes in our world to connect with that stuff because we've got these big, thick bills like the Inflation Reduction Act and all these rules and committees and Zoom calls. And you forget this is why we're doing this stuff, is because of the stuff that we love. So think about the stuff that you love and the nature in your life and the things that matter to you and why you are doing this work. And it keeps you coming to these meetings. It keeps you fired up and going, even though there might still be that skeptic in the back of your head, like I got, because I got that too. But I am the Clean Energy Program Manager during the day at Greenbelt Alliance, and that is 2 programs. One is Energy Savers Network, low income weatherization and solar in Buncombe County, and then the other one is the Blue Horizons Project. I'm the staff liaison, so I help make sure the meetings happen and that notes are happening and things like that for this 13-person self-perpetuating committee. And all the folks that help support that. There's a couple dozen people that are involved in the Blue Horizons Project. And the point of the Blue Horizons Project is to get to 100% renewable energy by 2042. Greenbelt Alliance is confusing. I'll admit it. It's a nonprofit and it has all these programs in it, and they're funded from different places and they do different things. I'm going to focus mostly on the Blue Horizons Project tonight. And it's a city-county initiative to help us get to 100% renewable energies by 2042. It's for us. They got their own plan. They're trying to get there by 2030. But for the rest of us, they're like, we'll give you 12 more years. And so the Blue Horizons Project is the bulk of what I'm going to talk about tonight when I'm not talking about the IRA, because that's the place where we come together. We talk about technical stuff we know about this, and we listen about what the community needs to try to implement it in an equitable way in Buncombe County. So I'm going to give you a couple basics, and Judy might have hinted at this. I'm kind of scared to talk to y'all. I'm sure there's some of you that don't know a lot about the Inflation Reduction Act and you're just kind of getting started, or maybe you know a little bit about weatherization. And then there's some of you that probably read the thing. It's like, what, 1 million pages long? Like someone in here definitely read it. And I'm going to get that comment in the back. Wine, you got it wrong. So I'm a little nervous. I'm going to start at the beginning. We're going to go quick through this and then hop into the IRA and the other pieces that we're doing here locally. The first thing I want you to take home with is solar is sexy, but it's not the best option. You don't start at solar, you end at solar. The stuff you start at is awareness, behavior, operating your house different, add some light bulbs, some low-cost air sealing, and you work your way up. So for bang for the buck, you want to do the most boring stuff first. It's like going to the dentist. You don't really want to go to the dentist. It's a very unglamorous way to spend time and money. But then you go, your teeth get fixed, you feel better. Weatherization. You go, you weatherize your house, you feel better, it's more comfortable. Your energy bill is feeling more comfortable every month. So that stuff is the stuff where we want to start. And here's some places where you would do that work. So we talked about lighting and cooling, there's devices, but then one of the things that I think is kind of, I don't know, gross is indirect leakage. That's where that hole in your wall where like the socket comes through, or like the latch in the door, and you've got air coming in through your attic or your crawl space, going through the wall and coming out there. It's like, what stuff in there is coming out that I'm breathing? So one of the things that you focus on a lot in energy efficiency is sealing up your house. So the air that's expensive inside stays inside, and the air that's cheap outside stays outside. HVAC uses the most energy. It's important to make a distinction between efficiency and conservation. Conservation is doing without, is not using the energy. So it's changing the way that you're using things so that you're not using as much. Efficiency is getting the same service for less energy. I still want to be comfortable in my house, but maybe I want to use a nice heat pump instead of a furnace so that I'm not burning fossil fuels. It's more efficient. It's cheaper to run over the long term. So this is where we're using our energy in our house. All right, we made it to the basics. 3 slides. So what is the Blue Horizons project? So this was started, it used to be the Energy Innovation Task Force, the EITF, to stop a peaker plant, which worked. If you were involved in that, good job. I wasn't here. I was in New Orleans where they were paying actors to go to city council, the utility was, to build a peaker plant, which ended up being built. So when I was like, oh, wow, hey, it worked up there. I should go up there. So the community council started from that, and now it's 13 members. It's self-perpetuating. There's some city county stuff going on through resolutions that keep it going, and some money that pays for staff time to help do the administration around it. But the idea here is it's both listening and speaking. So like going out to events and festivals and hearing what people need. And what you hear a lot of is, I need to pay less for housing. I need to pay less for transportation. I need a job. My kid needs to go to school. So how do you integrate the conversation of energy into those things? And I think like electric vehicles are one of the most exciting ways to do it. Since you're asking me, and then like heat pumps, I think are a underrated solution to all this. So when I'm talking to folks, I'm like, well, wouldn't it be great if you didn't have to go repair your car as much? I mean, it'd be kind of nice. What if you paid less for gas? That'd be nice too. So kind of connecting folks where those pain points are is what we're doing when we're out there doing the outreach and hearing what folks want. And then the group just last month adopted a 100% renewable plan, which I will come back around to later at the very end. But this 100% plan is the way that we think that all of us can get to 100% renewable energy. So that's where I'm coming from as I'm presenting this. And that plan had some key takeaways. They put into this middle of the road infographic. There's definitely debate at the office about whether we should use this or not. I like the iconography. I think there's probably too many words. But the idea here is you electrify everything. So anything that uses fossil fuels now, you try to use electricity instead. And by doing that, you actually dramatically reduce the amount of energy that you need and the electricity that you need overall, which is kind of amazing that just by electrifying things, you actually gain a bunch of efficiency. And then the other thing is you want to make everything efficient. You want the same services for less energy. And then the third one is greening the grid, which that's where y'all come on as advocates, telling Duke when they're messing up and they need to fix something. or adding to the microgrid, adding distribution to the top of your roof. And then of course, there's different behavior changes we can do. And you all probably know these ones. So we're gonna move to the next slide. You all ride bikes, right? It's so joyful. It's nice. I don't have to preach to the choir. It feels good. Okay, so I'm going to talk about what we have now, and then I'm going to try to add in the Inflation Reduction Act, which is, I think, what everybody's trying to do. Duke Energy is trying to do it with their energy efficiency program. North Carolina DEQ, Department of Environmental Quality, they're trying to do it with their program. So I'm going to tell you what we got, and I'm going to tell you what the IRA adds, I think. Here's the thing, like, I feel like the stuff I know because someone told me and I trust them. I read it probably on the internet, or I did original research. The last original research I did, I was an undergrad and it was for marine worms. So I don't know how applicable that'll be tonight, but keep in mind, I heard this from somebody or I read it somewhere. So if you know something else, like maybe you did read that long bill, help me out. So first, where we're at, before we get to the IRA and my anxiety, Duke Home Energy House Call. If you haven't done this, you should do this. There's a link at the end of the presentation that I'm sure y'all will get at the end. They come out, they do a custom look at your house, what's going on at your house, how you can save money, what you can do, and then they give you a menu of options. Depending on your income level, if you're below 200 federal poverty guidelines, you can get it for free. Soon the IRA is going to be in the mix here, but right now it's market rate for everybody else. EnergyWise Home brings down the peak, helps manage the load on the whole system, and they'll give you a rebate for helping out. It's like a virtual power plant. Energy Saver, that's where they give you cash to do stuff at your house. Doesn't matter how much money you make. If you are a Duke customer, you get this money if you do these things at your house. So start with the house call and work your way down. So that exists now. Duke Energy has those programs now. They also have some low income programs that are same, but different. They're at no cost to the end user. And there's some other folks in the ecosystem like Community Action Opportunities who are serving low income folks, but this is the market rate stuff. There's do-it-yourself changes. I have a picture of me in a Tyvek suit in an attic in July in New Orleans. Terrible mistake. I don't recommend going in the attic or the crawl space. It's not really my favorite place, but if you're into that, you can do it and save a little bit of money. So there's tons of videos. I don't know if you all remember the Time Life videos that have those infomercials. You remember that? No, it was on TV. My wife's giving me a look. She's like, yeah, don't bring those up. It's like YouTube. You go on YouTube, you can find anything out. So there's lots of DIY stuff you can do on your own. And then I talked about low income and then also just changing how you use your house. So like making sure your water heater is at 120 degrees. That's actually really important, not just for energy use, but for safety. 120, you're not going to scald yourself, but you go higher. So you have a guest over, maybe a kid, you turn it on, it's too hot, that's dangerous. So you really should, like the water heater thing, like that's a safety thing. But changing the way you operate your house, using cold water and laundry, drying your clothes, that's another way you can do it right now. We made it to the IRA. Can I just say, I wish they had named it something else. Irish Republican Army, the individual retirement account, and now the Inflation Reduction Act. Like, come on. But it is the most amazing climate bill we have seen in our lifetimes. Maybe we'll see ever with what's going on in Congress and politics in the United States. But this is an amazing piece of legislation. And I think it's hard to undersell some of the stuff that's in it that seems like a throwaway thing. For example, there aren't a lot of caps in this thing. Like a lot of it is limitless and based on tax credits. So everybody could do it. And it could be a multiple $trillion expense to the United States government if we all do it. And so there's like no caps on a lot of these programs, which is kind of nuts. So stuff you can access now are things that you should talk to your CPA about. They're all things that would be on your individual tax return for 2023. I would be glad to. Judy asked me to read each one. So there's, let's see, 10 of them, 11. I didn't put numbers. I pulled this from a website called Rewiring America. If you haven't heard of it yet, you should go check it out. They're a national effort, and I put the website at the end too. They're a national effort to electrify everything and really implement the IRA in a smart way so everyone can use it. They make the analogy of it being like a checking account for your house and for you, whether you're a owner, a renter, whatever, that you can access to do this stuff at your house. So for the tax credits, this is stuff you can do now. And a lot of you probably already know you can buy an EV, an electric vehicle. There's rules about how it can be up to 30%, up to $4,000 for a used car, $7,500 for a new car. For the leased vehicles, they do it up front. So that's kind of cool. You can take it off the top. And then there's stuff like battery storage at your house, which is 30%, geothermal heating, so ground source heat pumps, 30%, upgrading your electrical panel. So if we electrify everything, a lot of times the panels don't have high enough throughput. So like it's a 60 amp panel and you're installing all these electrical appliances and now you need a 100 amp panel. So upgrading your panel is one of the upgrades you can get. A new heat pump water heater, rooftop solar, and then weatherization rounds out the stuff that you can do now. So this laundry list is on rewiringamerica.org, and it has a calculator that if you put your information in and the calculator says, enter your household information to find out, do you rent or own? How are you filing your taxes? How big is your household? How much money do you make? What's your zip code? And then of course it's a nonprofit. They're going to ask for an email, right? That's how you do it. So this tool, when you put all your stuff in there, it pops out what you're eligible for now and what you'll be eligible for soon. And this is the best resource I could find that was the most accessible without reading the bill itself. So when you put this in, you'll get this first screen where it says, here's all the stuff that you can get from your taxes right now, depending on if you have the tax liability to support this in 2023. And then it says, here's the stuff that's coming soon. So right now, Department of Environmental Quality is negotiating with Treasury and EPA and DOE for all it. So sorry, the Department of Treasury, the Environmental Protection Agency, and the Department of Energy are the three main agencies that are implementing the Inflation Reduction Act. So they're talking to all the states and they're trying to dole all this out to the states. And then the states are making sub-grants to other organizations and tradespeople to dole it out even further. And so we're like in this cascade of things that are happening. And right now we're at the state one. And the state keeps saying, oh yeah, we'll get to it. We'll let you know in a little while. We'll let you know. Well, today they said we'll know by the end of August. And what that means is they're going to release plans for how us and tradespeople can access these direct rebates. So the first thing is tax credits. The second one is direct rebates. So these are the rebates that are available through the Inflation Reduction Act that have to happen at point of sale. And they're predicated on your income levels. So if you make more than 150% of AMI, and I looked it up, AMI is way up in Asheville, where it's like $90,000 for a family of four now. So if you make more than 150% of that, and don't quote me on that, you got to look it up. That AMI number, it moves around every year. So if you're over at 150 AMI, I'm sorry, these aren't really available for you. But good news, you can still do these. And if you own a business, I got more for you in a little bit. So don't go to sleep if you make more than 150% AMI. But if you make between 80 and 150, you're eligible for 50% of the rebate available for these upgrades at the point of sale. So say you've got the HVAC dude comes over, the HVAC person comes over to your house and they're going to install a new heat pump for you. They will give you, for a new heat pump, $8,000 off if you make less than 80% of AMI, or they'll give you $4,000 off if you make between 80 and 150 off the top of the price. So you do it at the point of sale. And this is how low and moderate income families are going to access these resources because they don't have that tax liability to offset to get that back at the end of the year. So this is to try to help everybody access these resources. So the way that I hope this is structured, and the rumors swirling about, there's a few things that are happening. And I don't know if these made it in the slides. Nope. One thing is North Carolina has a nonprofit called the North Carolina Clean Energy Fund, and it's a green bank. And they've already started the process of getting these kind of systems in place to help with financing to cover the other part of this. So say your heat pump water heater, your heat pump, so it's the item that's fourth from the bottom there, you get $8,000 from the federal government. The green bank might be able to come and backfill the other $8,000 you need to install the system. So give you a low cost loan for this kind of stuff. So there's a nonprofit that's working on this. There's other programs to IRA to help them out. There's that piece. There's so many pieces of this thing. It's like you're swimming in all these details. So these rebates are going to be at the point of sale, and we'll know more, presumably, if DEQ can make it there with these agencies by the end of August. So in 30 days, we should actually know how this is going to roll out. But the bad news is that's just like, here's how it's going to happen. They're not going to have the checks ready in 30 days. They're going to be like, all right, now the trades group have to sign up. Now we've got to get that website in place. Now, so we're looking at probably early 2024 if we're ambitious. So this piece is really important, especially for energy equity, but it's just taking a really long time. I don't know if y'all listen to Ezra Klein. It's a New York Times podcaster. He has an IRA podcast that came out a few weeks ago. And he says, if you talk to, or his guest said, if you talk to the government folks, they're like, this is the fastest we've ever moved. Why are you all being so impatient? So it's like, that's whatever side of the fence you're on, So those are the rebates that are available. If you're between 0 and 150% AMI, you can get the full rebate below 80. You can get half of it between 80 and 150. If you're above 150, you don't get that rebate, but you can still get the tax credit. The finance program is really neat. And I don't know if y'all were following this at all, but Brownie Newman and Maggie Ullman, who are on the Blue Horizons Project Community Council, they brought in the North Carolina Clean Energy Fund, and they got $100,000 in the county budget to do a loan loss reserve for a pilot. It's going to be $1 million to do low interest loans to folks that need it to do energy improvements in Buncombe County. I think it's just us and Raleigh. Like, it's a pilot, so no one else is doing it. So that was a pretty cool win locally. And I don't know if you know how this is structured. I have some feelings about it, but whatever. We all have feelings. It's a public-private partnership, right? So the taxpayer absorbs the risk. They take that $100,000 of tax money, and they get, I don't know, what bank? I'm thinking of all these banks that went out of business. So you get Bank of America to come in, and you say, okay, well, you put up $900,000 or $1 million, and we'll put up $100,000, offer a real sweet interest rate, give these out. And if anybody defaults, we'll pay it with this tax money. So it's called a loan loss reserve. So that was kind of a big deal to be like, okay, well, we've got $100,000 in tax money, and we're going to leverage it to get $1 million. So folks can do these, like, get this really awesome financing to do this. I think the gold standard would be something like PACE, property assessed clean energy. So that's when you attach the debt to the tax bill. Or if you do like on-bill tariff, like if you do on-bill financing through Duke Energy, I think those kinds of tools are probably more useful for folks. And they're in the works, but we don't really have that yet. So there you go. There's some other tools that might get into the mix. Some more letters for you to remember in the alphabet soup. Okay, so that was like the two big slides right there. When you go on Rewiring America, you're going to see this. That's the tax credits. And you're going to see this. That's the rebates. Tax credits available now. Rebates available. I mean, late 23, if you're 2023, if you're an optimist, we'll say. I mean, I got a lot of love to give. I'll give the government a little love. They'll make it. They'll make it, right? Late 2023. So then what about new builds? There are some incentives in this bill that are for tradespeople, which is fantastic because I don't know if you noticed, but if you call one, they got a lot of work. I can't get the HVAC person to show up if I call them until like next Tuesday. So it's like these kinds of incentive programs, imagine paperwork. They got to hire somebody. They got to track it. They got to go through all those processes, right? So there are some tradespeople incentives, not just for new builds, but for also some of this other stuff I talked about, where if they put a package together with multiple ones of these, they get like a bonus $500, or it incentivizes them to do the paperwork to get the incentive for their clients. So this is for a new build. So if you're going to do a new build, if you're developing individual homes, if you meet Energy Star guidelines, you get $2,500. If you meet zero energy guidelines, you get $5,000. So this helps incentivize the developers to go to that extra step and help pay for the additional pieces of developing green homes. Okay, businesses, nonprofits. There's one really cool thing. Again, I don't know if this is emphasized enough, that you can get refundable tax credits or sell them to somebody if you don't have tax liability, if you're a business. So if you're a nonprofit, nonprofits don't have any tax liability, but say you own a school, you're a charter school, or you're the United Way and you have a big building, you can do all this stuff and get these rebates. And the commercial rebates are a little different than the residential ones I showed you. But the commercial, you can get these commercial rebates, these tax credits, these commercial tax credits, but you don't have a tax liability. So how do you take them? Well, there's going to be a secondary market, so you can sell them to somebody else. And the IRS is also going to make them refundable. So they'll send you a check, even if you don't have any tax liability. Now, don't get too excited. As far as I understand, I think it's just for business. I don't think it's for individuals. That's why there's that whole rebate at point of sale business. But this is a really neat thing, because if you think about like accessing the clean energy transition and equity, if you're the United Way, if you're the soup kitchen, if you're providing services to low-income folks and you can get your bills down, you can provide more services. So the tax credit for solar is really fascinating because it was going away. I don't know if you remember, but they were stepping it down. It was like to 26% or 23% or something, I don't know. But the IRA bumped it back up to 30% for 10 more years to get solar panels. And they added 2 bumps. There's a 10% bump if you are in the right census tract for low income disadvantaged communities. So that's specific census tracts, you get an extra 10%. And that's great for nonprofits that are providing services, right? And then you get an extra 10%. So on top of that, so up to 50% on the solar panel for made in America steel and aluminum. And so this has spurned lots of manufacturing changes, people investing in manufacturing facilities, loans, the big motor companies getting more involved in EVs, battery manufacturing, like that stuff is really starting to take off because the government has provided these incentives and given some stability to the market to say this is going to be here for a while. So, I mean, it's the government, maybe it won't be there for a while, but that's the idea. That was the whole plan in the IRA. It's like 10 years, 10 years planning out. So there's ways that businesses can take advantage. If you own a business, you should definitely look at this. I don't have a lot to say about this. The part with the 50%, that was the exciting part. So, oh, there it is, direct pay. I don't know if you noticed, this is the first time I've done this presentation, so apologies. So direct pay and the transferability is exciting. Tax credits up to 50% depending on where it is. And then there's these economic development opportunities. I think that whole politician thing of jobs that can't be outsourced, in manufacturing, not so much, but installation, I mean, you can't outsource someone going into your attic. Like, I mean, well, I can outsource it to somebody, but that person's got to live nearby, right? So they can get in the attic. So these jobs are here, which is a really strong driver for the economy and growing this. Okay, so now we're back to what's happening now. So that was all IRA stuff. And I wanted to give a few slides here about what the Blue Horizons Project is doing about it. So it's a community council. It's 13 people. And they and the folks that support them, so it's really more like 30 or 40 people, have come together to write this 100% renewable plan. And it was kind of messy. And I think it's really evolved, and I'm pretty excited about it. It's kind of like the Sierra Club model from what I know about it, where you have like a champion and you have a committee and they're a volunteer and they drive it forward. So like if you care about that particular thing, you join the committee as a member or you lead the committee to make that action happen. It's kind of like that. We've got these initiatives we've identified. There's some companies and nonprofits that are working on the different initiatives. And then the plan is made where it's like, and there might be something else. I personally just found out about a microgrid group that's been meeting that's pretty exciting. And I didn't know about them at all. So bringing them into the fold and not trying to own this and it being a one group thing to help actually catalyze and go out and do the outreach to get other folks involved is the point of the plan. And right now we've identified all these ones over here on the side. I'll just give you kind of an overview of it because they're teeny tiny, but it's low income solar, some of the programs I talked about at Greenbelt Alliance at the top. And then there's these bulk buying initiatives like Solarize. Remember Solarize? Bulk buying solar panels for residential rooftops. We want to do one for heat pump water heaters like that. We want to electrify HVAC systems. That's a new thing that's coming this year. Solarize is going to run part of that program for Blue Horizons project. That's a new thing. And then there's things all the way at the bottom that are a little less developed or moving forward from the group that we've got, like agrivoltaics, reducing vehicle miles traveled per capita, community solar. that we would love a champion, or we would love a company that's working on this stuff already to be the champion. You don't have to be a volunteer. Maybe it's your job. I mean, this is my job. I come out and do this stuff. So like, it doesn't matter if you're getting paid or not, but having people in the community hold these pieces. I'll give you another good example before I move to the next slide. Land of Sky Regional Council is really, really involved in transportation money, federal dollars coming locally. Where do they invest it? The whole EV network. So the transportation element, it'd be really great if they held on to that. And there's a lot of back and forth between our council and what they're doing. So we know what's happening and we can help catalyze things forward. So I'm excited about this renewable plan. One of the pieces that's really exciting, I'll give you, this is just one more example, is the Blue Horizons project has a community engagement committee, and there's a chair, but then there's also another leader who professionally does ESG work for a living. I don't even know what that means anymore. Environment, sustainability, governance, ESG. No one? Oh, I got DEI covered, but ESG, I don't know, too many letters. So she's the one that actually like was the primary author of our community engagement plan. So we took the plan that we were doing, which was very quantity driven. Let's go talk to as many folks as possible. And they changed it into a plan that was quality driven. And so it's been really cool to be part of this community engagement process because it has really transformed the efficiency of the work that we're doing. And I feel like that's a really good metaphor for what these other committees could be if they were to be developed with a champion. I got a lot of love to give. I'm glad you guys were there for that, to be part of the love about the Inflation Reduction Act. I can have y'all, you can send this out if you want later. I don't know how y'all do that, but there's my contact information. That's the office phone, so that'll get to me eventually, but that's my email that pops up on my cell phone, so you'll get me right away. And then I talked about different resources during the presentation. Duke Energy Progress has programs you can take advantage of now if you have not already, and you should do that immediately because that is free, and you should take advantage of, no cost for taking advantage. The Rewiring America thing, that is like every advocate I'm talking to, that's what they bring up. So if you're going to figure out how the IRA affects you, that's a really good place to go. And then we have a handout that's a whole page of like DIY stuff, and putting insulation in your attic is not on that page. So, we'll go easy on you. Thanks for having me. Questions or statements, maybe?
So I live in a nonprofit, a residential retirement community, and say we wanted to upgrade our heat pumps to, would you say that is able to get a rebate for that kind of facility?
I think so. Yes. I don't know how it's going to work though. So I'm pretty sure it's not going to go on your individual. I guess it just depends on how it's structured. Like, is it condos or are you a renter? Would be how they did it. But the contractors. So for the whole community. So like, the big HVAC, like Johnson Controls and who else does that? Westinghouse. They're going to be able to come in and do like those big commercial buildings and be like, here are the incentives that are available from the IRA and from Duke Energy that will come off the top. And so it'll be part of the scoping process. That's the intention. But yes, as far as I could tell.
Okay, thanks. I have a HVAC that's a heat pump with the mini splits, that kind of thing for my heating, but it doesn't heat if it gets below 20 degrees. Kind of one. So it was told that I should upgrade it. So if I would upgrade, take out the old one and put in a whole new system, would that be an eligibility one? Maybe. I know you don't make the decisions, but do you think it might apply?
I have no idea, but I will tell you what I do know about that. The heat pump technology now is better than it was even like 10 or 15 years ago. And you can get it down to 0 degrees. So like without having to have the backup heat kick on, which is the expensive part, right? There's backup electric heating elements. And when those kick on, it's like, it's like turning on your oven, or, it's like the easy bake oven with that. Remember those with the little incandescent light in there? It's like that. It's like tons of energy for not a lot of, anyway. So they get 20 degrees lower now, which is exciting new technology. I don't know if it would count. You said, do you have a backup gas furnace? Oh, okay. So it's just like be upgrading to a better heat pump. I don't know. That's a really good question. I will look, and if I find out, I will tell you. Does anybody else know?
I would say that yes, she will be able to get a credit for it if some type, because it is aimed at more efficient and newer equipment. I also live in a nonprofit community where there's joint activity. And I wanted to go back, Jamie, to the business and nonprofit thing, because you emphasized business, you didn't emphasize the nonprofits. And there are a lot of large nonprofits around here that could benefit from this a lot. And my understanding is that the 10% credit for US made products is eligible to the nonprofits and everybody. I think it's even eligible to individuals. If you do an activity which is eligible and gets to 30%, you can add the 10%. If you meet the credit criteria, is that your understanding for US made products, which I also understand is gradated over a period of years. So you don't have to start at 100%. You start at like 45%, I think.
Yes, that's also my understanding. And, I said, things because someone told you, or you read it on the internet. A solar installer in Eastern North Carolina was at a conference, and she was talking about it in one of the plenary sessions, and she was super excited about it. Because she said the same thing. It does apply to everyone. So I misspoke if I said that, but yeah, that's also my understanding.
Jamie, somebody.
Go ahead.
Jamie, yeah, I have a humorous question. I'm just wondering if any of these rebates are retroactive. I installed a heat pump 2 years ago.
The rebates are not, but the tax credit started January 1st of this year. So if it was after January 1st, maybe you could get a tax credit, but the rebates are not retroactive. And the DEQ is very clear about that on the question and answer website. We must do this first. It doesn't go backwards. So there's unfortunately no rebates until they release the rules.
If we got a heat pump and we didn't have one, do we have to get rid of our gas system, or can we keep that for backup and get anything? And who knows which one we're using from there on out?
I think you have to get rid of the gas system.
That makes sense.
But this is a really interesting advocacy point that I really want to push on as a staff member at Greenbelt Alliance, and talking to these tradespeople is like, the rule of thumb since the beginning of time is switch like for like. If you have got a gas furnace, switch it for a gas furnace. If you have electric system, a heat pump, switch it for an electric system. And if you have a gas system that works and you put in a heat pump, you should keep the gas furnace. And I think changing hearts and minds in that arena is going to be a really big lift, because to change from gas to electric, a lot of times there have to be substantial upgrades to the electric panel and to the electrical system to be able to handle that load. And it's been just way too expensive. But with all these rebates, it won't be. It will be on par or cheaper by price. So I think changing hearts and minds and tradespeople is part of a piece of that question, where it's like, yeah, I think you're not gonna be able to use the furnace, but also like this is a much bigger fish to fry about like working with tradespeople.
Jamie, let's take some questions from the Zoom. So let me give you those. Do any of these things work for renters? Because landlords often don't pay the utility bills. What do you do if you're a renter?
So in the programs that we have at Greenbelt, you can do any of our programs if you're below 200% of federal poverty guidelines. If you're a renter and you have landlord permission, this will kind of be similar. The rules are different though, depending on where the money is coming from, right? So if you're getting Duke Energy money, they've got certain rules about how they interact with the landlord. but they're looking at the person that's paying the utility bill. With this, there is stuff all over the IRA websites that are like, and this is for renters too. But I have found nothing where it says how. It's like, okay, well, great. How are you going to do that? That's like the core issue in energy efficiency, like that split incentive. Who owns the building? Who operates the building? Right. And if it's a renter versus a landlord, how do you motivate the landlord if they're not paying those operation costs? And so, some of these things actually are really good for the building. Like you get humidity down, dampness down, it helps, like water is the enemy. It reduces mold, it reduces rot. So those are easier sells. But then stuff like a heat pump water heater, it's like, it's noisier, it's taller. There's some things about it that aren't great. So it's like, how do you make that leap? That is a good question. I don't know. If I solve that question, I might, I'd be living in a nicer house.
All right, another question. Parts of Weaverville are covered by the French Broad Electric, not Duke Energy. Is that relevant to any of the future outreach to electric companies?
Yes. The co-ops, I think if I recall correctly, they're not regulated directly by the NCUC, the North Carolina Utilities Commission, who regulates investor-owned utilities like Duke Energy. And so the co-ops do things, they don't have to do the energy programs. Some of them do. As far as I know, French Broad doesn't. They also don't have to participate in net metering. That's where you probably all know what net metering is. It's where the energy company has to pay you the same amount of money to buy your energy as you buy it from them. So it's a net zero across the meter. They want to pay wholesale rates and sell it back to you for retail. So here you go. Here's your energy back. Thank you. We want a cut for you producing that for us. Appreciate it. For distributing it nowhere. Anyway, sorry, I've got feelings about that. So back to the question. IRA.
It's the energy outreach that you're trying to do. Does it matter whether you're with Duke Energy or with the French Broad Electric?
For the IRA, no. If you're getting the incentives from the Inflation Reduction Act and from tax money, man, I went on a hard tangent on that. So it doesn't matter. If you're participating in utility programs, which exist today now, Duke is it, but French Broad really doesn't have much. They have a thing called Touchstone. So it kind of looks like they have something, but it's not really anything substantial. It's all marketing.
So more on the internet, we have from Brian Caffrey. He confirms, he says that heat pumps are good to 0 degrees, as you said.
Boom.
So
Not just a pretty face, right, baby?
Okay, don't heat pumps, even newer ones, have much lower efficiency at low outdoor temperatures? I'm concerned about widespread use of heat pumps in cooler weather, causing brownouts, especially if the resistance of the heat pump kicks in.
Yes. So heat pumps have limits. This particular climate zone, we rarely get down to 0 degrees. Like that does not happen very much. So the newer technology is a lot better at this, whereas the older technology, it was like 20 degrees. And that happens a lot more frequently. So when it gets down to 0, we could, like when we hit this place with the new technology, we could buy energy from other places, which is more expensive, but definitely possible. This is a huge political question. I'm going to put a pin in that tangent for a minute. The answer is yes, it's a problem. Our peak times, like our peak energy load around the whole system is on the coldest winter days, because that's when those emergency heaters kick in. It's a problem. The way that you mitigate that kind of thing, like any intermittency issues, like the wind doesn't blow, the sun doesn't shine. You heard people say those things. And like the thing like having peak load because of heat pumps, one of the biggest issues is the segregation of where energy is coming from. Like Duke Energy as a monopoly utility has all this control, but the sun's still shining in Arizona, and those electrons don't care where they got to go. They could travel farther, they're going to lose some efficiency. But the idea here is by opening up the grid and having that additional connectivity in a smart grid, you can actually completely solve this whole this intermittency problem and the peak load problem. Like those kinds of things are political problems. We've decided to do it like this. And if we change our mind, we could fix it. But I had a joke at my last job, and someone would be like, why is it even like that? And it's like, well, you know why, money, systems, capitalism, like that's why, it's a rhetorical question. So bringing down those political barriers will be a key issue in dealing with peak issues.
And this is just more information. The Rick Clemenzi says that some new heat pumps are good to -5 degrees Fahrenheit.
Thanks, Rick. Rick's always there, got my back.
At this time, I don't have AC and I'm looking at a mini split. And so what is the process? I just wait until there is yeah, so where is the category of the mini split in here?
Okay, so the question about do you wait or do you buy now? So if you buy now and you have tax liability, the heat pump, air conditioner, and heater would be where mini splits are. A mini split is a kind of technology where it's like a regular AC system, but instead of ductwork, you have the coolness move through the refrigerant pipes. And so you have smaller holes in your house. They're more efficient because there's blower units in different rooms. So you don't have to turn the whole thing on at once. It's staged. So it's an efficiency thing. They run a little more efficiently because of how you can run them. But it's an HVAC system. So it's a heat pump. And so right now you get $2,000 back. That's that fourth one from the bottom on this slide. And then if you did wait and you were income qualified to when the state and the IRS and Treasury and EPA get it all together at the end of this year, presumably if you're between 0 and 100% AMI, 150% AMI, you could get another $8,000 back off the top when it's delivered. So that's the heat pump, air conditioner, heater piece. But that's a big question mark. Like if you're on the website and you click more info, it's very flowery words, but really it's all like, it depends. We don't know yet. Depends on where you live. It depends on what they negotiate. So it's a question mark.
Okay, so is this for United States or North Carolina, or is there a difference?
That is a great question. This is a generalization for the entire United States.
Yeah.
Every state is going to be a little bit different. And there's a disclaimer at the bottom that I cut off because the words were too small, but you can go read it if you want. That basically says this is bound to change based on what they negotiate between the state and the federal government about how the program is implemented. So this is a general rule of thumb from the bill itself and initial releases from EPA, DOE, and Treasury, but in the negotiations with the state, it will probably change a little bit.
Okay, so it's a good idea, obviously, to wait. And how do I know when it's ready?
Well, how hot are you?
Excuse me?
Like, how hot do you feel? Are you cold? Are you hot? Because if you're hot, you should get an air
can wait.
conditioner.
No, I can wait. I have a little window unit for now, so that's enough.
Okay, yeah. So you should go to, oh, that's not it. I thought I put it in there. I did not. I must have taken it out. I'm sorry. I can send it out. There's a Department of Environmental Quality website where they have live updates. And it'll say, we updated this on July 29th. And they'll be like, here's where we're at in implementing this part of an Inflation Reduction Act. And I thought I put it in there. I'm sorry, but I'll get it out to you. I get to work and I click it and I'm like, what's happening today? Did they do it yet? And it's just their webpage, like, we're negotiating, we're sorting it out.
Who is there?
Department of Environmental Quality, North Carolina. NCDEQ. And there's a website and I can get it to you, but I didn't make it to the presentation. Sorry.
Okay. Thank you.
Jamie, if you give it to me, we'll post it on the web.
Okay, I'll give you the website. Just got the mic.
Okay, yeah, one problem we have here in North Carolina, our state legislature, there's a bill that prohibits electric vehicle makers from selling in North Carolina. Unless let me back up. If you're solely an electric vehicle maker, you're not like a GM or a big automaker. There's a law in North Carolina that requires all vehicle manufacturers to sell through franchisees. It was passed in 1972. It was intended. There were concerns that, like Ford or GM would come in and wipe out the mom and pop dealership. So they put in this law that requires all vehicles be sold through a franchisee and not direct to consumers. They made one exception for Tesla, but every other electric vehicle maker is prohibited from selling in North Carolina. So my wife and I, we've been waiting for 18 months for 2 EVs that we can't get because they can't sell in North Carolina. The question I've got though is, we did solar, we put in a battery and, geo and all that. When we get the cars, we're going to do bi-directional charging. So, we got a credit for that 10 kilowatt battery we put in the basement, but we're going to have a 120 kilowatt battery in the car in the garage. Is there any, I know there's that $1,000 credit for a charger. Is there any additional incentive for bi-directional charge? It's more expensive, but you're really putting your storage battery in your garage.
There's a guy who I'd ask, and he's holding the mic already.
The short answer is no, there is not an extra thing for the cars and the chargers. But we should probably, it's a very esoteric discussion. We should probably have that offline.
Dave Erb comes to Blue Horizons meetings. He's one of the council members.
Jamie, I just want to say thanks for doing this. I think that the more education you can get out, a lot of these things just aren't known. And the one thing I wanted to mention was, I think direct pay for nonprofits is really something that the light's gone on. Because, some of the churches I've worked with, and maybe yourselves also, where people are sitting on a fence, like how do you get the tax credit back to the people? Do they pay individually or whatever? But if you have a church community, or if you're in a retirement center, or if you're in some place that is a nonprofit, it looks like, as I understand this, they will pay you directly. So the money comes right back to your organization, your church or whatever. And today, 15 years ago or so, or 10 years ago, solar was kind of the unknown, kind of like where geothermal might be today. But today there's no reason why not to have solar on every building, everywhere, and all new construction and churches and everything else. It's a way to step up and say, we're doing something for climate change. Look at what we're doing. It's a good marketing thing. It's a good moral thing, et cetera. I just want to say also, on our house right now, we have solar, which we've had since 2015, and we don't pay any electric bills, at least for the next several months. We won't, except for a connect charge. So we can run both. We have 2 HVACs and we got a well, and that thing will handle all of that stuff for free. So while I'm goofing around during the day, that thing's writing checks. So I would just encourage you, if you have been looking at solar and thought about it, go ahead and do it. And Rick Clemenzi and some of the other people on the call here can also help you a lot with geothermal. Maybe instead of moving into a heat pump, you might want to look at geothermal also. Thank you.
Yeah, the groups we work on, the work on that locally are Creation Care Alliance with Mountain True, and then Waste Reduction Partners. And that's pretty cool. There's retired engineers. They'll go to businesses and give them kind of like, here's the stuff you could do to reduce your energy use. And I don't know, I think that's really neat. Like if I retire, that'd be a fun thing to do.
I'm thinking about getting an induction stove, and I saw you had a rebate up there. Is that a rebate off your taxes, or is that off the price of the appliance?
It's off the price of the appliance. They're talking to like Lowe's and Home Depot and like the local appliance places to get that in store. One of the interesting questions about this bill is like, how do you find out what someone's income is if you're standing at a cash register at Home Depot? And so there's actually like white papers about it, and Rewiring America has like a whole blog series about how do you do this. And so there's like one of the big problems is how do you do the point of sale for that kind of thing. And I sat through an hour-long presentation from a lady at Health and Environment and Energy Efficiency about her saying how awful gas stoves are. They put out SOx, NOx, and VOx, sulfur oxides, nitrous oxides, and volatile organic compounds. And she went on and on about how it's so bad for your health. And then someone was like, well, do you have a gas stove? And she's like, well, yeah. And I mean, I'm like, what? But she's right. Like, it's bad for your health. And induction stoves, if you're a cook, and I like to cook, induction stoves offer very similar, almost the same service as a gas stove. Like, it's the same kind of quality of cooking experience. And yeah, I think that's probably right. You just have to get the right pan for it.
And just to follow up on that, the wiring has to be a little bit stronger. I don't know if I have that, but if I needed to get that rewired for 220, is that credited somehow?
Yeah, it's through the electrical wiring and the electrical panel. And usually if a contractor would come in and offer all of it, right? So they say, we'll sell you the stove and we're also doing the wiring. So the electrician would package it together and give you the rebate altogether.
Thank you very much.
That's the intent. I guess it'll depend on what DEQ tells us, but that was the intent.
Are there any incentives for hybrid vehicles or just electric?
Not that I know of. I think it's just electric. But Dave would know if I'm wrong.
I think it may extend to plug-in hybrids, but it is definitely vehicles with plugs. And I'm not positive about plug-in hybrids.
Something I didn't talk about at all is there's some really interesting hydrogen stuff in this bill. The Ezra podcast, they talked about it for a long time where they said it's basically zero cost to deploy this hydrogen technology so that it can compete with the installation of all the stuff to start competing with natural gas, propane, et cetera. So it's like, I don't know, I don't work in hydrogen. But we talked, remember when Clinton and like Gore were talking about hydrogen, and I was like, you guys are just talking about this because you know it's never going to happen. You don't have to do anything. So now it's like actually happening. So that's kind of cool.
So more from online. What about expiration dates? When do these rebates and tax credits expire?
It's supposed to be 10 years. It's supposed to be. But what happens when the administration changes? What happens when there's new Congress? I mean, they can change their mind.
And another question, Duke offers to utilize outsourcing for renewable energy if we pay an extra $4 per month. They offer no clarification of or guarantee that the renewables are actually being used. Any comments? Not sure I understand that.
Jennifer, if you're on the call, I'm sorry. That's the Duke person we work with. There's a few pages on Duke's website. If you start poking around the renewable section that are kind of unclear, it's like, if you're interested in participating in this, contact us and we'll work it out. And it's like, I don't know if that's a real program. But it all kind of falls in the same class, right? You've got community solar that's local. Everybody kind of pays in and they get a piece of that project. So that's the most local thing. But then you've got like renewable energy credits where you can buy them to offset your use. You got power purchase agreements where you purchase specific power from a specific producer that's green. And then you've got the Green Source Advantage, which is a Duke program where you can buy into green energy that Duke is producing, and that's your green energy. All of these programs, in my mind, they're different. And if there's a solar person here, you're going to be like, you're totally wrong. Why are they all the same thing? Well, in my mind, they're the same thing. You're paying somebody else to generate it somewhere else where it's more efficient to do so. So if you're in Buncombe County, lots of trees, lots of mountains, land is very expensive. It's like, okay, well, how much solar and wind can we actually do here? And I think the answer is somewhere around like 300 to 500 megawatts if we're really pushing it. We need like 6,000 megawatts. At the low end, we need 2,500 megawatts. And so that kind of capacity, we're going to have to get somewhere else. So the reality is we're going to have to access these programs to go out to the Piedmont, to go out to the coastal areas, to access those wind resources and those solar resources and the cheaper, flatter land. And so I think the reality is we're going to have to access that kind of stuff. How it works? Oh, I don't know, but we're going to have to get there. And because it's just the reality of where we live, the geography makes it very difficult to do renewables at large scale and cheaply. Y'all are hot, man. This is a great audience. We should make this date night every time. You can talk next time, honey.
Carol, did you have a question? You had your. They answered it. They answered it. Okay, okay. Well, Jamie, outstanding. Thank you very, very graciously. So Dynamite, hopefully you've got Jamie's contact. Jamie, you might want to put it back up there in case people want to reach out to you. And likewise online, he's welcome to stay and answer your questions in person. I want to invite you to come back same time, same place next month, September 6th. For preserving our beautiful views, like up on the Parkway, the 70%. So Southern Appalachian Highlands Conservancy. Think about our hike, which is August 30th, which will be at Twin Falls, and look on our website and our meetup for you to sign up. But Jamie, that was great, and thank you very much. Yes.
Before we go, anybody would like to share a club book? That's full of beautiful pictures and